I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've been putting this video off for a very long time. Ever since first starting the channel, I've been getting comments about Sonic characters as Pokemon, and I've kind of pushed those to the side because merging these two franchises together just felt kind of cursed. I don't know what it is. It could be anything.
When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
But I just felt like it wasn't time yet. But with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3,
it's about time.
I want to explore not just Sonic as a movie character or a video game character, but the history of Sonic as a whole, taking into account all the things and resources and response that make who this character is. Sonic Underground, Sonic Blocks, Sonic Lego City, Sonic Jaleel White, everything. Bring all of that together to inform and create Pokemon today. So, without much further ado, let's hop into the video that I have tried so desperately not to make, and let's get started. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Thesterninator, but the scientists who made me call me the ultimate life form. While you're here, don't forget that you can drop down below to like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff that makes me and YouTube very happy, and let's get into the video. Starting off, I wanted to tackle Sonic. Yes, Blue Justice, the Blue Devil, the Blur, himself, Sonic Maurice Hedgehog. And I wanted to kind of use this to anchor the vibe that I was going to be going with for the rest of these designs. I knew that whatever I decided for this idea was going to carry through in a lot of different ways. So it was very important to get it right. I found that one of the biggest problems that I had with this design and with the designs as a whole was trying to make them feel less like Sonic Sonas and more like Pokemon. For example, this initial design that you're seeing here ends up getting scrapped. It just feels a little bit too much like the original Sonic design. Not that one. Yeah, that's the one, thank you. It ends up looking a little bit too much like that, and I wanted something that felt edgier. I looked at some of our Gen 3 designs, which I consider the edgiest of generations. It has Pokemon that really have these like ridges and spikes in ways that are different from Kanto. They feel much more like they were designed to look cool. I mean, Gen 2 has a lot of that too. For example, I was looking at Pokemon like Feraligatr or Toxicroak. They have these dark lines that segment the body and make it feel much more skater-esque, and I wanted that. In fact, as I was looking at skater-esque type of designs, I thought, well, it'd be interesting to bring in some aspects of real-life athletes into this Sonic look. So I went with looking at skateboarders and racers and rollerbladers and all these different people who kind of work in these speed-based athletic sports. I brought those in kind of as ways to figure out what stance I wanted, what energy I wanted to divert into the character, and how I wanted this whole line to look. So I brought that in, used that to reference the pose, as well as kind of the musculature. I decided that Sonic, while he is a gangly type of dude, I wanted to give him just a little bit of points of musculature. So I used these strong calves as this anchor point for this look. They allowed him to feel like he has some fighting spirit to him, like he is a formidable character. And going in with color, I kind of went and said, okay, let's start with just Sonic's actual color scheme. Kind of moving things around, working with a couple of the different variations on color there, playing with some of the aspects that are common to the actual Sonic look, and deciding what to keep, what to remove. I went in and kind of Pokemonified it, I think. Gave it some ridges, gave it some points of interest, and ultimately went in and broke up those points of interest and shapes by adding more shapes to it. So the gloves, the shoe-esque type of things, I added these different dots and shapes to allow it to have just a little bit more variation, give it some more excitement to these minor areas. Obviously keeping the eyes and the face the focal point. I wanted to keep the eyes that are so iconic to Sonic and his whole band of characters. They also very much feel like speed goggles, or they're meant to keep the wind out of his face. I don't know if that was the initial concept idea, but it really works here, especially with these being speed-based Pokemon. So I went in, utilized that to its fullest advantage as far as I can tell and as much as I could hope, and hope that it ended up working in a way that makes sense to the character. And even now, you can see me going back and adjusting the colors to again break up those shapes. Didn't want it to feel like Sonic with extra stuff thrown on, but to feel like a cohesive design altogether. So, here we have Soniquick, the speed Pokemon. It's an electric normal type, which will give it ample room for those speed-based attacks, like extreme speed and swift in the normal typing. Obviously, its speed stat had to be the biggest pull for the entirety of the design, and for the shiny, I went with this goldish color scheme that emphasizes supersonic. I really enjoy this design and think that it works out really well, but next up is actually my favorite of this video. On initial concept, Knuckles is just kind of the muscle. Didn't really intrigue me, but the idea brought in with shows like Sonic Boom and Idris Elba's performance in Sonic 2, I really came to enjoy the character. I've watched the Knuckles series probably 8, 9, 10 times just because I love Idris Elba's portrayal so much. He's such a well-meaning but ultimately a warrior, a man out of time and space. And I dig that. It's really a vibe that I can get behind with this type of character. So I wanted to capture a lot of that as well as get that rage down. I found inspiration in a couple different areas that aren't necessarily Sonic adjacent. For example, while there are Sonic comics published by IDW, I looked actually at Wolverine. In some of the recent comic runs of Wolverine, he has these claws that are adamantium but also able to heat up into this glowing red type of look. And I thought that would be perfect for this Flames of Disaster inspired character. I wanted to make the Flames of Disaster a key component of this version of Knuckles. I also, as you can see, beefed him up into some big Popeye arms because I wanted those to be something that counterweighted the entirety of the design. I wanted him to have these little tiny legs with this big screeching head counterbalanced by these massive hulking arms. I'm now realizing I just referenced Hulk and Wolverine in a video at the same time, and the video is about Sonic. So, weird, but okay, still kind of works. So I made this design and I played around with the idea of what type I wanted this Pokemon to be. There were great arguments across the board for him being several things. Him being ground type for Knuckles' digging ability, him being fighting type because he's Knuckles, him being fire type for Flames of Disaster. He's pretty quick, so maybe I should give him the normal typing or the electric typing to get some of those speed-based moves. So many things that I ultimately decided, rather than think up a plan of what I want to do with Knuckles and then work off of that plan, I'm just going to make something that I'm happy with. I'm going to play around with the colors, play around with the shadows, and move on into something that I can say, well, that looks cool. Knuckles is a cool character. He should look cool. So I threw all of that on the back burner, decided I'll come back to the typing later. And I'm sure in the comments I'll hear a lot of people saying that I got the typings wrong. Understandable. I think that there are a lot of ways that this could all be taken, but this ended up being my favorite design. And the idea that I had of just making something cool and not overthinking, over-planning it, I think really, really worked for this character. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And while you're down there, as per usual in my videos, I often ask you guys to come up with abilities for all of the characters in each video. You guys are a lot better at that than I am. I'm no huge meta person when it comes to gameplay and balancing, so let me know down below. That balancing thing has actually proven to be a little bit of an issue with the fan game that I've been making off of my own fan region, Costawes. So I've been playing with it, figuring it out along the way, and while I think I've learned a lot, I still need your help. So let me know down in the comments what abilities you see Knuckles, Sonic, and the rest of these characters having as they enter into the Pokemon world. Also, don't forget to join our Discord. That's going to be in the description below. Our Discord has a ton of people who love to juggle around weird ideas like this, a group of like-minded people. But for the moment, let's get back onto Echidna. A lot of silent letters in that name. He is the Disaster Pokemon, obviously based on the Flames of Disaster. I decided to go with Fire Fighting type, and for the shiny, went with this brownish color that I notice a lot of other Echidnas in the series tend to have, while Knuckles kind of stands out as being red. You can see he's got a huge buff in that physical attack, as he should, and he's much bigger than Sonic. But to round out our trio of red, blue, and yellow, I have to hop on to Tails. Tails was a little bit different of a concept. I went in and decided, okay, let's do some research on Tails. Let's look at Tails throughout the years and see how it works. I found that Tails actually started out as brown. It was something that I kind of knew already, but going back and seeing the different images of Tails side by side, both the yellow and the brown version, I thought this would be a good opportunity to create a Pokemon that evolves. So I went in with this initial idea, this concept of a small brown fox, and had Vulpix in the back of my mind this whole time. Time to make a fox-type Pokemon that is brown and probably turns yellow and has multiple tails. I need to keep Vulpix and Ninetales as far away from this idea as I possibly can. I don't want to be influenced by the fox creature thing. So I ended up putting that away and hopped onto a couple different ideas that I have to say I'm pretty happy with. Having this as our Pokemon that evolves, I think really works because Tails is like the little brother of the series. While he's not actually related to any of the characters, who amongst us played the original Sonic games and said, okay, here, you be Tails, to our little brother or our younger friend or the friend visiting from school or whatever, because I'm Sonic or I'm Knuckles, you can be Tails. So I wanted it to really fit that niche, make him feel like he's an unfinished product, meant to become cooler later, because in later series, Tails does end up getting his own special circumstances that make Tails a really cool character, but in initial concept, he was player 2. So this is Voltwin, the name coming from Vulpin and Twin, like twin tails. And speaking of which, this is the twin-tailed Pokemon. It is a pure normal type, and I know you're probably saying, what about this or that? We're gonna get to it. For the shiny, I went with a more yellow color scheme to mimic Tails as they are, and I think it works. This was a cute little design, and I'm glad I was able to throw it into the video. Moving right along, we're gonna work on Tails as he is. Tails being our yellow flying fox, so I wanted to make it flying. It's gonna be flying type, as you can probably imagine, but how to make this different from the previous form? I feel like I kind of shot myself in the foot on that one. I went in with this idea for Tails pre-evolution and did not think about what I was gonna do for the next form. I kind of got stuck in that mindset that I had with Knuckles. Whereas Knuckles is a character where not thinking, just charging straight forward is their MO, and it allowed me to really get in the mindset of something that would represent the character. Tails ended up being a very different story. Tails is a thinker. Tails is an inventor. Tails is a character who has to plan and needs things to go the way that they planned. They're the anchor that allows a lot of Sonic's adventures in the movies and comics to make sense. They're the ones who invent, who create. And so, how to make Tails work without a plan? I don't know. So this is actually the second iteration that I have of Tails' evolution, because I needed to plan. I needed to put some forethought into it. So I decided rather than sticking to 2 Tails, which I'd already done in the previous form, I wanted to expand on the idea, make it a little bit more exciting. Swapped out those green eyes that the initial Tails design had way back when with the blue eyes that Tails has now, giving it that tornado tail and that yellow color to very much more feel like our modern day version of the character. I think it works out in a lot of ways, and while it's not one of my favorite designs I've ever done, I definitely like it. I can see where the inspiration hits and where the opportunity for creativity takes over. And if I had more time or energy or just more opportunity for experimentation, I would play with how that tail spins a lot more. I really, really want to get that down. I think it's a fun mechanic that allows us to have that twin tail type of look without having a mimicry of the previous evolution, but bigger. That's kind of what I wanted to stray away from in this design. So this is Volturbo, the name a reference to Vulpin, Twin, and Turbine. Still the twin-tailed Pokemon, it is now a normal flying type with its shiny reminiscent of regular, actual foxes, which tend to be red, but more importantly, it's a reference to the other flying mechanic in the Sonic games, that being Tails' Tornado Plane. That was hard to say. Recently, I've gotten really into Pokemon TCG Pocket. It has taken over my life in a number of ways, including inspiring me to buy physical packs. I opened those on my second channel, which is down in the description, as well as playing behind me here. I'll post those a week early on Patreon, as well as do a couple live streams of pack openings on the Discord. So if you want to be caught up on all that stuff going on, be a part of all of this fun community that takes part in these pack opening videos, head down to the description, jump into the Discord, and find me on Patreon so you get an exclusive first look at those videos. Sorry to interrupt, I'm going to get you back to your video. Since I'd set out to create characters based off of the full history of Sonic, that's a tall order, and I obviously wasn't going to get to all of them, but I do get the chance to get to one of my favorites. That being an old school character who actually made a return in some of the more recent games, that being Mighty the Armadillo. I know that he's a much forgotten character, but it's one that is my absolute favorite, so I wanted to get this into the video here. Let me know what you think of Mighty. In fact, let me know what you think of all the Sonic characters in existence. Who's your favorite? There's so many great models and variations of animal throughout the entirety of the history that I'm curious. Come down in the comments and let me know who's your favorite. I have a feeling I'm gonna get a lot of Vectors, a lot of Shadows, and a lot of Metal Sonics, and probably a lot of Rouge the Bats. You know who you are. But let me know. I'm very, very curious. For a long time, I really liked Big the Cat, and I still do. And I must say, this last year, I played a game from Steam that released on April Fool's Day, that being The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I got to know a lot of these characters a little bit more. Kind of went in only knowing them in a cursory glance, but getting to know them, getting to understand the characterization of each of them was a ton of fun, and I didn't have to play all 150 different versions of Sonic games in order to do so. I'm gonna go ahead and say it while I'm here, while I'm talking about my introduction into the Sonic franchise. My first game that I actually played of Sonic that wasn't the original was Sonic Unleashed, and I think that warped my understanding of what the games are about quite a bit, so yeah, I had to do a lot of research for this video, as well as watch the movies and just kind of go in. Sonic as a character and as a franchise is something that I've always been semi-interested in, so getting the opportunity here to really dig in was great. And getting the opportunity to work on one of my favorite characters, Mighty the Armadillo, was a ton of fun. So this is Delighty, because I am delighted to draw him. The Spin Dash Pokemon, it is a ground type, and while its stats aren't anything to be super excited about, I went ahead and made its shiny a reference to that original, very round boy Sonic, with making his red back blue. Very little, very cute, very demure. So happy he made it into the video. But we're here today because of the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And with that release, we got some new characters. I have not seen the movie yet. I'm actually putting this video out the day of the release of the movie, and I've been working on it for about a week. But I have this sneaking suspicion that Shadow is going to make an appearance. I don't know why I think that. Who knows? It could be anyone's game, but I decided I have to draw Shadow. Probably because he's in all of the trailers, he's all over the place. He is the cool and edgy Sonic. He uses guns, he rides a motorcycle, he does all this great stuff working for secret agencies, so I think we all knew that when the Sonic movie, to become a Sonic trilogy, first released, it was a matter of time before we got Hot Topic in Hedgehog form. So I wanted to draw this character, bringing in some of the aspects that we utilized in our Sonic Pokemon, but ultimately trying to make it feel like its own. It may be second nature to some of you to think of the same inspiration that I had for this design, but for me it took a second and I realized this is the ultimate life form. It is a creature made in a lab to pretty much replace or to combat or to exist in a world alongside this other creature who's kind of become famous and gotten this notoriety. This is Mewtwo. In so many different ways, Shadow is just Mewtwo, and I stan him. I think that's great. So I utilize that as this driving force behind this design, as well as the next one, in how I wanted to perceive this character. I played around with a couple different concepts. You can actually see in the sketch there, I used two different hands just so that I could visualize what each one would look like. Couldn't figure out if I wanted to give him claws or a gloved hand, how much that I wanted to relate him to the Sonic Pokemon, how much I wanted him to stand out as his own Pokemon, and I decided to kind of meet in the middle. Like I said, he has some aspects of that Sonic one, but has some aspects of his own too. When working with these Sonic characters, I think that there's a certain balance there. Shadow is meant to look pretty much just like a darker, edgier version of Sonic. That's purposeful. That's by design. But with this concept, with this play, with turning them into Pokemon, I do want them to feel very much like their own. True, they'll have a couple of those same areas, but I wanted it to feel like it could very much stand on its own as a character. And while I feel like Shadow in this Pokemon world does feel a little bit more like it still is a Sonic Sona of sorts, I'm pretty happy with it. I think that I captured a lot of the ideas that I wanted to, got to play with color in some of the ways that I wanted to. Ultimately, color ended up being the biggest challenge of all of these designs, how I wanted to break it up. But I think that I was able to use it in a way that, at the very least, I enjoyed. A way that allowed me to function with these ideas in the way that made me happy. So I also wanted to bring in these bands of rings. It's a huge thing with Shadow that he has these rings on his gloves and that he's able to teleport, and that there's some connection of the teleportation to the rings that are just kind of a part of him. So I wanted to bring those in, but change them and alter them in a couple different ways. Being that he's an experiment, one kept in a test tube for so long, I wanted to utilize these rings not so much as a power source, but more so as binds. Jumping back to that Mewtwo inspiration, I think of Mewtwo's armor and how it's made to enhance his power, but at the same time dampens his freedom. So I wanted to utilize the rings in the same way. They are something that can very much be seen as amplifying the power of Shadow, but their placement and the way that I structured them across the arms and the legs and the hips really make them feel more confining, make it feel like he's in a wearable golden cage. And I dig that. I think it informs the character a little bit. So this is Edgehog. You know I had to do it. The joke that Shadow is an Edgehog was too sweet of a candy not to dive into. So this is Edgehog, the Shadow Pokemon. For the shiny, I brought in that gold color again, giving it some more characterization and association to our Sonic Pokemon. It is a Psychic Dark type. I feel like that works because of the Psychic teleportation, and of course he's dark. I mean, what else am I gonna do? On to our final character. You may be asking yourself, but Stern, have you not already covered all of the characters who we think may appear in this movie, as well as Mighty the Armadillo? Yes. Yes, I have. But there's one character that I'm actually hoping we get to see in this video. In this movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Revenge of Shadow, or whatever we choose to make the tagline, in this movie, I have this suspicion, this thought, this hunch, if you will, that at some point we're gonna get to see Shadow and Sonic team up. A lot of you are watching this video after already seeing the movie, and you're probably saying, Stern, you were so wrong, you were so very, very wrong, and I'm okay with that. I think that if we're gonna go in the concept and the idea of these man-made hedgehogs, then we need to throw in Metal Sonic. How can you not? So I went in, decided that I wanted to work with this character, either because I genuinely feel like he may appear in the movie, or because Metal Sonic is just a really cool character, and with the fact that we have future Paradox Pokemon, it really felt like it worked for this prompt. I wanted to draw it. So I go in kind of keeping that in mind, this future Paradox type of look, this future Paradox type of motif that makes it so that this Pokemon can make sense. And I had so much fun with this design. I'm gonna be honest, it may or may not be, I don't know, I haven't ranked them, one of my favorite designs of this video, if not one of my favorite designs of the year. But I had a ton of fun designing this Pokemon. I don't know, I normally move away from future Paradox forms. I've done a couple videos on them, drawn a couple Pokemon and variations of Pokemon that are future Paradox or future Paradox adjacent. But this Pokemon, this thing was fun. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun drawing this, and I hope that it comes through. I hope you're able to see just how much fun that I had. I hope that this is someone out there's favorite of the video. Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys because, man, just the experimentation that went into everything, I felt like I kind of got a handle on what I was working on and how I was making these characters work by the time that I got to this design. It's a learning process. Whenever I do these videos and I have multiple Pokemon that I get to design from different franchises, like I do, by the time that I get to the last couple, I feel like I'm in this groove. And I very much felt that with this Pokemon. I was like, yeah, I'm digging this. I'm actually having a lot of fun. I may have come into this whole video saying, man, I don't know if I necessarily want to do Sonic as Pokemon, but by the end of it, I was so happy that I did. This is phenomenal. In fact, I'm gonna put my Redbubble store link in the description, and I'm gonna have this be a sticker there. So by the time that this video drops, you can head over to my Redbubble and find stickers, not just of all of my other designs or my other favorite designs, there's a lot, but you'll be able to find a couple stickers from this video as well over at my Redbubble. That'll be down in the description. I hope that I can see you there. Those stickers are a ton of fun, and they come in matte, they come in magnet, and they come in holographic, as well as a couple different versions as well. But man, Metal Sonic, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I haven't played a game I think that has Metal Sonic in it, but I feel now like I have to. Such a fun character. So this is Iron Racer, the Overlord Pokemon, given one of the nicknames for Metal Sonic is Overlord. I went ahead and made the shiny silver, not just to match the shiny aspects of other future paradoxes, but also I wanted to make it this light silver that made it almost whitish to look more akin to the Eggman robots that we've seen in previous movies. It's an electric steel type, and I feel like it works. So the question now is, which of these Pokemon are you catching? Which are you taking with you on your Pokemon journey? We've got a lot to choose from here. I know who I'm taking, but I'll let you guess that in the comments. I'm curious about who you guys saw as your favorite from this video. I had a ton of fun. I hope you did too. And I want to give a shout out while I have the time and while I have the moment to a couple of the people who made this video today possible. First up is Toxic Thoughts. They have a YouTube channel where you can hear all of their music. I'll have that in the description below. Toxic Thoughts actually made the background music that you're hearing right now and you've been hearing throughout the video specifically for today's Sonic video. It is insane how talented this human is, and I think you should check them out and let them know that Stern sent you. Really good stuff over there. I also want to give a big McThankies from McSpankies to our top tier supporters over on the Patreon, that being Soren Frost, Styx TV, Jesse Badger, Teacup Cryptid, and Dan Bush. Everyone who helped make this video possible, I could not do it without you. So it sounds like you all know where to find me. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.